Long before the mighty empire rose, before the marble temples and the thunder of marching legions, there was a land rich with hills and valleys, bordered by the gentle waters of the Tiber River, and blessed with fertile soil. This was Latium, a humble region of the Italian peninsula, where shepherds guided their flocks and tribes struggled for survival. It was here, in this land of mystery and myth, that the story of Rome truly began. The people who lived there were no strangers to hardship. They built small villages on hilltops for safety, watching the horizon for raiders and wild beasts. Yet these people also carried within them a spark of destiny. They did not know it yet, but their soil, their rivers, and their courage would one day give birth to one of the greatest civilizations the world had ever seen. And, as often happens in tales of great beginnings, the gods themselves seemed to play their part. Legends whispered of a Trojan prince, Aeneas, who had fled the burning ruins of Troy. Guided by fate, he carried within the sacred fire of his people and the hope of a new homeland. His journey across seas and storms, across despair and triumph, brought him to the shores of Italy. There, among the hills of Latium, he planted the seeds of what would one day grow into Rome. But destiny does not unfold without struggle. The blood of heroes, the will of kings, and the whispers of the divine would all shape what came next. For from the union of myth and reality, the tale of Rome would begin its first chapter. From the ashes of Troy and the wanderings of Aeneas, generations passed, and the seeds of destiny continued to grow in the soil of Latium. Kings rose and fell, and among them was Numitor, a ruler of Alba Longa, said to be a descendant of Aeneas himself. But treachery is never far when crowns are at stake. Numitor's brother, Amulius, seized the throne, banishing the rightful king and weaving a dark plan to secure his rule. To prevent Numitor's heirs from challenging him, Amulius forced Numitor's daughter, Rhea Silvia, into the service of Vesta, making her a priestess sworn to chastity. Yet fate is stronger than human schemes. One night, Rhea Silvia encountered the god Mars, and from this divine union, twin sons were born, Romulus and Remus. They were children of both mortal struggle and divine power, destined to alter the course of history. Amulius, fearing the prophecy of their greatness, ordered the infants to be cast into the river Tiber, but the river did not claim them. Instead, the waters carried them gently to the foot of the Palatine Hill, where destiny intervened once more. A she-wolf, drawn by their cries, nursed the twins with her milk, protecting them in her den. Later, a humble shepherd named Faustulus discovered the boys and raised them with his wife, unaware of their royal bloodline. The twins grew into strong and daring young men, leaders among shepherds and hunters, always driven by a restless spirit. They knew they were meant for something greater, though the shape of their destiny remained hidden. Their bond was unbreakable, forged by survival, adventure, and the mysterious hand of the gods. Yet even brothers, no matter how close, cannot escape the trials that fate has prepared. For in the story of Rome, blood and ambition would test the strength of family itself. As Romulus and Remus grew, so too did their ambition. They no longer wished to live as simple shepherds. Their hearts burned with a vision of greatness. When they discovered the truth of their royal lineage, the fire within them only grew stronger. They gathered companions, young men eager for adventure, and began to dream of building a city of their own. But destiny, ever cruel and mysterious, demanded a price for such dreams. The brothers could not agree on where the city should rise. Romulus favored the Palatine Hill, strong and defensible, overlooking the bends of the Tiber. Remus, however, preferred the Aventine Hill, broader and more open. Each argued fiercely, unwilling to yield, for both believed their hill was chosen by the gods. To settle the dispute, they turned to augury, the ancient practice of reading omens from the flight of birds. At dawn, Remus claimed to see 6 vultures soaring above his hill. Yet soon after, Romulus declared he had seen 12 over the Palatine. The people were divided, each side defending its champion. Anger flared, and words sharpened into violence. In the chaos, Remus mocked Romulus, leaping over the low walls his brother had begun to build, as if to scorn the foundations of the new city. Enraged, Romulus struck him down. Thus, blood sealed the destiny of Rome. Romulus mourned his brother, yet he pressed on, naming the city after himself Roma. He called his followers to raise walls, to build homes, and to prepare for a future greater than any had imagined. Upon the Palatine Hill, the first stones of Rome were set. But a city is not born from stones alone. It needs people, laws, and purpose. And Romulus would soon face the challenge of turning a dream into a living nation. Rome was born, but in its earliest days, it was little more than a gathering of men warriors, wanderers, and fugitives who had followed Romulus in his vision. The walls stood tall, yet inside them there was no balance. For a city to grow, it needed families, alliances, and the weaving of generations. Rome had strength, but it lacked women, and without them, the dream of a lasting kingdom would soon wither. Romulus, ever cunning, devised a bold plan. He declared a festival in honor of Neptune and invited neighboring peoples, including the powerful Sabines, to attend. Music, feasting, and games filled the air, and guests from far and wide gathered, unaware of the true purpose hidden beneath the celebration. At Romulus's signal, the Roman men seized the young women of the Sabines and carried them off as wives. Panic erupted, cries of betrayal filled the air, and the festival turned to chaos. Yet Romulus calmed the weeping women with a promise. They would not be slaves, but honored partners, mothers of a new nation. He vowed to treat them with dignity, and in time, many came to accept their role in shaping the destiny of Rome. The Sabine men, however, did not forgive so easily. Outraged by the betrayal, they raised their armies and marched upon the fledgling city. Battle raged outside the walls, Roman steel clashing with Sabine fury. But in the midst of war, the abducted women intervened. Standing between their Roman husbands and their Sabine fathers, they pleaded for peace, demanding an end to the bloodshed. Their courage forged unity where violence had divided. The Romans and the Sabines laid down their arms, choosing instead to join together as one people. Thus, Rome became more than a city of outcasts. It became a kingdom built on the blending of nations. With peace between the Romans and the Sabines, the young city began to flourish. Romulus ruled as king, guiding his people with a mixture of stern authority and bold vision. He organized the city into tribes and established a senate of elders, giving structure to what had once been only chaos. Under his leadership, Rome grew in strength and reputation, no longer a refuge for fugitives alone, but a kingdom that commanded respect among its neighbors. Yet even the life of a king is not eternal. Romulus's reign was long, but his end was as mysterious as his beginning. Some stories tell that one day, during a storm, he stood before his soldiers, addressing them with pride, when suddenly the skies split with thunder and he was lifted into the heavens. The people believed he had not died, but been transformed into a god Quirinus, protector of the Roman state. Others whispered darker tales, that the senators, weary of his power, conspired to strike him down. But in every telling, the message was the same. Romulus's story was not bound to earth alone. In the years that followed, his vision endured. Rome became a beacon of order, law, and ambition, destined to expand far beyond the Tiber's banks. The city that began with two brothers, a she-wolf, and the daring of desperate men, would grow into an empire that shaped the course of history. And so, the tale of Rome's origin is not merely a story of gods and kings, of omens and battles. It is the story of resilience, of unity forged through conflict, and of a dream that outlived its dreamer. From the Palatine Hill, Rome rose not in a single day, but in the endless march of destiny.